Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. I am so sorry. I'm like a minute, a whole minute late, I think. I was here. I really was here. I promise. But my mouth was full of food. Okay. So, anyways, a bunch of comments here from Win. I'll cover that in a second. Let's look at the chart here first. Yesterday, kind of an interesting day, actually. I thought. I mean, when you look at the chart overall, pretty uneventful. A little bit higher. Notice that the 2 and 10 spread steepened a little bit overnight yesterday. And now it's steepened a little bit more overnight. Oh wait, sorry. That's not the one we're looking at. This one right here. Okay. And treasuries are a little bit higher. Although they're coming back pretty hard here. And there's an iceberg at 1. And there's a massive, massive order at 09.5. Anyways. E-mini. E-mini again had a pretty good run overnight, but then fell. It went lower, bounced a little bit. I don't know. People were kind of getting a little panicky, but it was okay. Today they're probably going to sell, and this is going to be the can we make a new low sort of a thing. Seems like it could be at least. Do we have anything on the docket for today? Don't need that. Don't need that. I've got too much shit open. I mean, things. I have too many things open. Forex Factory. Wednesday, nada. We got nothing. We got nothing. Tomorrow we get preliminary GDP quarter over quarter, which pretty important number. 5K iceberg there now at 10. Okay, so Win tells me, first of all, that I need to change the date. That would be a good idea. Okay. So this should say the 28th. Now you're saying that you see 2 videos? There are currently 2 videos listed on my feed that appear as your channel live streaming now. Both are dated the 27th. That's kind of weird, but it might just be showing up twice. Wouldn't think too much of it. Got a couple of comments. Oh, I see, Greg. Oh, what does Greg say? Oh, thank you for your kind comments, Greg. I didn't have to think about how to respond to that, but he said very kind things. He said extremely kind things. Thank you very much. Anyways, I'm kind of thinking, though, I'm looking at the DOM. I'm seeing there's not a whole lot on there. So I think that we need to go to the CME. This is important stuff. See when you get to see the first rollover. So we can see, well, we want to go to interest rates. So you can see how we think about that. So at the beginning of the month, the way that it works is the last day of the month is first call, which means that if you are in the September contract after Friday, you can be called, which means that you would have to deliver, $1 million worth of treasuries to the person that calls you. Pace of roll. So what we look at is we see how much. Oh, do I have to log in? That's pretty lame. Wait a second. I think I have it logged in under Chrome. Hopefully. Yes. Cool. Oh, it doesn't like it. Hold on. I might have to create a new one. Uh, Nope. Might have to make a new one. Okay, just a second. Well, snap, it's not letting me in. I created it. Oh, maybe I have to activate my account. Bum, 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 Today on the Fed calendar commercial paper. So I don't see anything. I do think that there is something. Hold on. That's another thing that we need to check. So if you go to treasurydirect.gov, we can look at upcoming auctions. I think we have a 5-year today, right? We do. We have 5-year today. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay, that time they did it. So, piece of roll. What? I'm logged in. You lie. I'm logged in. Doesn't like that browser. Doesn't like that browser. Okay. So, what are we seeing? We're seeing that things are pretty rolled over. Only about 20% is on the front month now. Bum, 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 bum. So, let's change this to December and look. What do we got? Here's a resistance level 5674 in what? Oh, in crude oil. Crude oil is an interesting beast and all, but not for me. I think I selected the wrong thing. Okay, so there is definitely a lot more liquidity over here. So let's switch everything. We'll leave the ES alone. And these we will change. Yen 12, 19. Cool. All right. There's going to be a significant roll when we move over. Twelve, 12, 12, 12. All of them except for the 30-year. Now that's interesting. The 5 and the 10 are rolling higher, but the 30 is going to have a gap to the downside on the rollover. Well, ain't that interesting? But it makes sense because all of the foreign investors are just piling into the 30-year. Companies are buying back their shares because they do not see an end in sight to China trade wars until the election is over. The bosses are tightening their own belts and hunkering down. What companies are buying back their what? But it appears, and I mean, it would only make sense that many companies are pulling back from new investments, for sure. It did give us a little long there, but a little sketchy. What do I see in the E-mini? Oh, right, E-mini short. Well, if I come in here and I reload my levels. No. If I do that, does it? Doesn't like me. You know what, though? Probably the so it's probably the roll screws up my indicator. So that's probably what that's about. Brexit Times political correspondent says Corbyn's request that the Queen meet him before a decision is made is too late. I understand the meeting in Balmoral as it happened, and the order has been made. So let's change some things, shall we? And then what's this big thing? I have to come back here to the front page to see what it was. O'Donnell. That's where it was. Okay. Please explain decoupling again. Does this apply to the consumer or to confidence or to a railroad track with speed processing train, petticoat junction? That would really depend on the context that it's using. But when we talk about decoupling, we're basically saying that two particular things were highly related or highly correlated, and they're going through the process of no longer being coupled together. Mm-mm-mm. It is easy to find out who doesn't actually trade by how often they vow they are now shorting on the 30-year. Oh, man. Well, the thing is at some point, it's going to have to come back. That's the thing. When the 30-year comes back, it's going to be crazy violent. But I would not recommend shorting on any kind of medium time frame. Oh man. So doing that roll right now, because my charts doesn't show the roll until when I pulled up the other chart. So now that I pulled up the other chart, it shows it has moved, which screws all the charts up. But when you look at the more recent month now, when you look at the December contract, they are spreading hardcore, which is very very disconcerting. I have a serious question for you. When the president speaks about the trade deficit, does he believe that this means we are paying China that amount of money, or is he using easy speak and not explaining? Okay, so there is a number released every month called the trade deficit, and it is the difference between how much goods are being exported versus how much goods are being imported. And at the current time, we are importing significantly more from China than we are exporting. Well, around the world overall, because it's an overall number. So, from his perspective, that means that we are only consuming and we are not producing things for other people. We buy more stuff than we sell. Exactly. Which means, essentially, that the US economy is riding primarily about on like services. We're not building things and selling them to other people. We're doing services like financial services and technology services. IQ says, "What'd you say about not shorting the ZB?" So Zero Hedge was saying it's easy to find out who doesn't actually trade by how often they vow they are now shorting that 30-year, implying that it's incredibly foolish to try and short the 30-year right now. But I mean, if you're scalping, obviously it's perfectly fine. But it sure is a thing to where it's like I was saying, at some point the 30-year is going to pull back a little bit. I have to pull up a different chart to show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, here's my trading view chart, and if I go back to like 1 day, I can scroll. Oh, maybe I have to go even further back than even bigger time frame than that. Okay, so now I can see since the beginning. Okay, so here is the 2008-2009 crisis. Okay, and we were moving up pretty hard, right? And then the crisis abated. The recovery began somewhere around March, April. And look at how quickly it come back there like that, right? Look at here again in 2013. And then, of course, after Donald Trump's election. So the thing is, when it comes up there like this, when it spikes, it has a tendency to spike up, hover there for a little bit, and then just gadoosh right back down. So it's probably not too wise to short the treasuries right now, but you can understand why a lot of people would be thinking and trying to do that, because when it comes back down, it's going to do it really hard. Like, you think that they're pushing up now. Man, when they push down, it's like one day and it's over. It's crazy. So, as a mom and a consumer buying clothes for family from Amazon or Walmart in China, it made a huge difference from going to the malls. I find myself wondering why we are expected to buy more expensive goods here when we have factories everywhere who can't find workers, or at least in my area, they can't find people to stand there for 12 hours for $12 an hour. Well, so that's the thing, though, is that why are the so there's two sides to this, right? Overshooting EXP weak GDP, in my opinion. Alligator talking about the flattening. Anyways, I'm not getting a signal. I'm just gonna kind of sit pat, but we need to pay attention for sure. Oh, we need to change these ones too. Oh, gosh dang it. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm being ADHD today. I'm being super ADHD today. Okay. Now we should be able to get better readings. Okay, so anyways, so there's kind of two sides to this on the trade front. Okay, the first thing is that the reason that the goods that come from China are so cheap are, one, because they depreciate their currency, and two, because they're basically using slave labor over there, right? When you look at what the people are actually getting paid, it's quite, well, it's just not right. I mean, I think whenever I sit and think about it, I feel really bad about it. And I'm sure that a lot of people do, because we're basically contributing to the oppression of people on the other side of the world. It's just kind of crazy, but that's what's happening. So that's the first side of it. But then the other side of it is when you're talking about over here, okay, they can't find people to stand there for 12 hours for $12 an hour. Well, I know a couple of people that would probably be more than happy to work for $12 an hour if they got benefits and it was full time. There's certainly a lot of people that are working in fast food and other places for $10 an hour, right? But why is it that people aren't willing to work? If we say that they're not willing to work there, then it's because they're not paying enough. Which would imply, I mean, think of it this way, okay? We're able to take advantage of these lower prices because China is still a developing country. What happens when China is done developing? Have you heard this thing that for China, labor in China is already getting too expensive for some Chinese companies, and so some Chinese companies are now outsourcing their labor to Africa. And so Africa is becoming China's China. If that phrasing makes sense to you, but um, that's the only way to really explain it, right? So now Africa is developing because of this, right? But what happens 100 years from now? What happens when the whole world has become developed and the whole world is now playing is caught up and are all paying fair wages, have labor laws, etc., etc. So companies can't take advantage of the cheap labor at that point. Then what happens? Then are people they're going to when people don't want to work for $12 an hour, you're just not going to make it anymore? Well, at that point you got two choices, right? Either one, you're going to do it all with robots, and or two, you have to pay them more. Yeah? Mm-mm. Probably they will replace them with robots, but that's kind of funny if they replace them with robots then because then it's like, oh, Um, nobody wants to work these jobs. Oh, but if we replace them all with robots, then there won't be any jobs for anybody. Okay, like, or maybe we're just automating the jobs that nobody wants to do anymore so that we can spend our time with more interesting jobs like designing and creating things. Maybe. But the thing is that there was a time when there wasn't international trade back in the 70s, right? And we paid people in the 70s a good wage. Um, when you inflation adjusted and everything else like that, and according to the standard of living in the 70s, we paid people a good wage. It worked out. So you could say if the economy was completely isolated, can you increase the prices and get enough? It can work. It can work for sure, right? But the disadvantage of that system compared to the system that we have today is that everything's so cheap, you can buy a lot more. And so we get a lot of growth because of that, right? Everything has its pluses and minuses. Mm-mm-mm. But Donald Trump has another concern, right? Because he's more concerned about like metalworking jobs, for instance. And that is a problem because the United States does need to have steel manufacturing. Okay. Because one, um, it's a national security thing. You need to be able to build tanks and things like that. Like if there's a war with China, how are you going to build your tanks? But then B, um, that's an area where you still need innovation and so forth. And so you would still want to have those industries generating new ideas, right? Getting a little bit of a outsized move here in the 5 year. They might be trying to turn around. The reason for the loss of manufacturing jobs is mainly automation of robots? No. I mean, sure, maybe in the car industry, that's probably a large portion of it. But the thing is we don't like those companies don't even exist anymore in the United States. Like, there's only a handful of steel manufacturers in the United States now. Hmm. No one can say that I dislike all of the winning. Well, the thing is that the trade deficit is a complicated thing, right? Like Donald Trump. Let me back up a second. Anytime that a politician says that he's on your side, you should be you should be suspicious. Anytime that a businessman says that he's on your side, you should be super, super suspicious. Donald Trump is both of those things. Okay? So you've got to know and I'm not, because I voted for him and I like him and all that, but you got to know, guys, that he is going to oversimplify things and he's going to say things that are maybe a little bit misleading or manipulative. And he absolutely does that on trade, right? Like that there's a large trade deficit. Okay, yeah, there is. Is that like a huge problem in and of itself? No. Now there are some things that are associated with that are a real problem right now, that need to be fixed, but it's not as simple as just we need to reduce the deficit, right? So then you dive into it and you say, oh, well, fixing this is easy. Well, it's not easy. Because first you got to fix the issues with China, where they're lying and cheating and all these things. So now you have a free trade agreement with China. Okay, great. Guess what? There's still going to be cheap goods coming from China. So, you know, resolving it. It's a long-term thing that is going to have to involve more than one president. And changing it is going to change other things about our economy. One thing might be that the price of goods overall just become more expensive. You know? A very good salesman. Yes, he is a good salesman. Transactional, but he appears to walk away from a deal for a bigger win. I think that he appears unsure of what the big picture is, but trusts his gut. I think so too. Well, I think that he's ADHD, so he's constantly living in the moment, and he has a system set up through which he negotiates, and he follows that system to his own demise. I mean, the thing is that for him in business, he could try making a deal, and if the deal doesn't happen, then oh well, right? But with China, if the deal doesn't happen, it's a big problem because China is like the largest consumer market in the world. That's a lot of business to just kind of pass up on, right? Anyways, and yeah, but although I would also argue that the situation right now is a little bit different because there's very specific what he wants. What he wants is pretty specific and reasonable, and China is throwing up a huge stink just over those things. It's like, okay, you can't steal our technology. They don't want to do that. I mean, come on. Come on. Oh, I feel like there's something wrong with my webcam. Um, let's check the camera settings here. So I don't need anti-flicker. Hmm. Hmm. Well, it is the anti-flicker is what it's, I think, what the problem is. But I don't know how to disable that. Maybe from this. Off. Better. Save. Okay. I think the last person to explain something is what he remembers. I also think his eyesight is bad and he wears an ear microphone. How else do you explain his looking up the window and saying he is the chosen one? He was not talking to Evan, he was talking to someone in the... No. I've been reading the down summary. That site has been flagged to be very open to bots and trolls. Well, okay, so everywhere on Reddit, this is the thing that I find funny about that particular thing. Yeah, there has been proof, as I understand it, there has been proof of Russian meddling on the Donald subreddit in the past. Absolutely, 100%, right? But everywhere on Reddit is manipulated. They do such a bad job. They do such a bad job of, you know, getting rid of the bots and preventing uh, user manipulation. Good grief. The far left activists basically own that website. And anything that they see that they don't like, they have the administrators or sorry, rather the moderators for the subreddits, like they have connections with them and they can just remove anything that they want. It's totally crazy. I mean, like it sounds like conspiracy theory territory and everything, but like there's like the chat logs and like everybody knows that it's anybody that's seriously involved in that website knows that everybody's trying to manipulate you, you know. Um, and I'm constantly, I mean, what I spend most of my time doing on that website is countering what I view as misinformation or trolls. So, for instance, one that happened yesterday was this Anti-Defamation League got a bunch of YouTubers removed. And there's this one guy, what was his name? James Allsup. That's right. Spelled weird. Allsup. I've never heard of him before yesterday, but they're all saying that he's a white nationalist. And I'm like, okay, how do you know that? Well, it says in the article. And then you go into the article, they don't say anything about him. Was like, well, he's a white nationalist. They say that on this YouTube, and I was like, okay, so when did he say something that was white nationalist? Can you provide a quote for me? I've literally never heard of him. Literally, I'm just saying, like, I want to know. Because I go onto the Donald subreddit, and they're all like, oh, Alsup was removed. This is just absolutely terrible. Everybody should support him. And I'm like, well, hold on, wait a second. If he really is a white nationalist, you posting about his channel being removed and encouraging people to support him would be against the sub rules, because white nationalism is against the sub rules. Okay, so we got to figure this out and fix things, right? Well, nobody can prove that he is a white nationalist. So you go on to his what is it? He has a BitChute where he uploaded everything. And if you watch his latest BitChute, he says, I'm not a white nationalist or a white supremacist. Like, he straight up says it. He even argues, he's like, well, the whole thing about white supremacy based on studies about IQ is silly because the studies about IQ show that Asians have higher IQ. So then are white people even superior in that respect? That was his argument. To me, it's like, who even freaking cares? Like, the differences between different groups of people at that macro level are so irrelevant, because the difference from one individual matters so much more. But anyways, that was his argument. So he says he's not a white nationalist, and there's all of this stuff on there that says that he is, and I see no proof of it. And I'm still kind of. It was funny because this guy was arguing with me. He's like, "Oh, well, it says this. Are you gonna move the goalpost now?" And I was like, "Nope. The goalpost is still that you have to find a quote of him saying something that would support white nationalism or white supremacy." And the guy was like, "Well, there was this thing in this article." And I was like, "Yeah, but that's not a quote, and you have no proof that he said that, and they have no source for that. They don't source where they got that from. So how can you say that doesn't count?" And he shut up. He gave up. Wrong says you are happy. Well, I'm probably happy because I haven't taken a trade yet. If I took a trade and I took a loser, I probably wouldn't be so happy. But I'm kind of one of the things is that because I rolled over, the things look a little confusing. But then number two is that I'm just not getting a real signal in the 10-year. And the 5-year says maybe a short, but how do I don't know if you want to fight that. And with everything else involved, yeah, probably should just sit pat for a bit and maybe see how, especially since there's no news today. Today could be a really rough day. By the way, does the microphone the right volume? Because it feels to me like it's not as loud as it normally was. But anyways, okay, so there was a bunch of stuff here. All social media and all over our computers, we find bots and trolls. We know there were attempts at interfering in our elections, and we know the idea is a great division. Not conspiracy theory, but intel. Yes. I can link sources for you that explain white nationalism. I also agree that we should not give free publicity, but we can stop the mail or party line phones on social. Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's a very simple explanation of what white nationalism is, right? White nationalists believe that there should be a state that is premised on the fact of being for white people. That's what they essentially mean, right? Because if you're an American nationalist, civic nationalist, basically means that you agree with the founding principles of the country, which are the Constitution. It really makes you a constitutionalist. And it's really not nationalism in the same respect that it is in Europe. So this is a big thing that you got to understand when they're talking about this and how this kind of gets twisted up, right? Is if you were to say, I'm a French nationalist, okay? What does that really mean? That means that you think that France should be for the benefit of French people. And that France is based on we're the French, and that is the basis of our country. And it's not anymore. Because there's been so much intermingling and everything in Europe that you can't even say that it's like that anymore. But the United States was different. The United States was built not based off of some idea of a particular group of people or anything like that. It was based on ideas. And so American nationalism is a completely different kind of a thing. But there are some people that think that it should be, like it was in Europe. And those are white nationalists. They think that the United States, or they want some other country or whatever it is, but they want a state whose primary purpose is for the advancement of white people. That's what a white nationalist is. It's a little bit different from a white supremacist. Although in practice it kind of doesn't matter, right? Because a white supremacist says that, white people are better. White nationalist doesn't necessarily say that white people are better. White nationalist would probably say something more like that it's better off. They're saying like there's nothing inherently wrong with intermingling people or anything, but it usually doesn't work out so well, is what they would say. Don't agree, but a nation for white people alone. Is that what you believe? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I believe in the Constitution. Period. Constitution, does it say, doesn't, I mean, there was some stuff about it in there about slavery and everything, but now it's all gone. What does the Constitution say? That you have equal protection under the law. That's what the Constitution says. And so the whole idea of white nationalism is unconstitutional because the whole idea is that that state should be for the advancement of a particular ethnicity. That's not equal protection under the law. So the whole thing is unconstitutional, and therefore, in my opinion, is evil. That's where it's kind of like you can go back and you can look at the spectrum here. Okay. Yeah, there's white supremacists and Nazis, and then there's white nationalists. And when you look at the definition, they're kind of different things, right? But when you look at it in practical terms, they're really not, because in the end, they're all unconstitutional, right? They all violate equal protection under the law. Now, there's another group of people. Now, this is where it starts to get fuzzy, okay, is identitarians. So identitarians think that the preservation of white culture is important. That's basically the definition of an identitarian. Now, from my perspective, why would you present it in those terms? Because to me, like, what is culture? What is American culture to Seth Ellis? American culture to me is the Constitution. Like we sit down and we say, okay, so there's these cultural values that are being eroded. Is that cultural value enshrined in the Constitution? No. Then there's nothing you can do about it. You can't control other people, right? So that would be my argument to an identitarian, is why are you taking it from those terms? But in their defense, okay, is it wrong to sit there and say, hey, there's a certain culture out there and I like that culture and I think that culture should continue? No. I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong about that. But there's all of these people out there saying, okay, you're associated with the identitarian movement, and then they say that's a white nationalist movement. Well, it's not. By definition, it's not white nationalist movement, but there's probably a lot of white nationalists within that movement. So now you kind of have this guilt by association thing going on. So this James Alsop guy, it sounds like he's saying he's an identitarian because he was part of Identity Europa or whatever it is. So then they say, well, that makes him a white nationalist, but he's not actually a white nationalist. Do you see how they fuzz things up? So now they're using guilt by association and labeling and the fuzzing of definitions of things to convince the public that a particular person has committed a thought crime that they haven't committed. Not okay with me, but I digress. They simply look to cause and effect to decide the risk or reward history. Philosophy and psychology tell me the pattern recognition of nationalism will result in history not being kind to this ideology, built to authority or repelled to equality. The laws that were written by men are interpreted by men. I tend to agree with you that constitutional forefathers know better than our current fathers know. Our forefathers were hungry and wanted to discuss ideas, practice their own religion, and live equally. This is not the road we are being led on. Wag the tail. Yeah. But that goes back to the whole thing where it said it's like, okay, American nationalism is not the same thing. And we should go a step further. Okay. Donald Trump nationalism is not nationalism. Okay. So this is an argument that really it's a very flawed. Okay. Because they're different things. So we want to say that Donald Trump is a nationalist. Okay. And Hitler was a nationalist, and it was Hitler's nationalism that led to Nazi Germany committing all of its awful atrocities. Okay. Well, nationalism in the context of Hitler meant that he believed that Germany was for the German people, which was an ethnicity. And so he was doing all of this stuff to advance the cause of that ethnicity. Okay. When we say that Donald Trump is a nationalist, what he means is that he thinks that a state's primary responsibility is towards its people, and that it should do whatever is whatever is in the best interests of its people, and not what is in the best interests of people from another nation. Okay, which is not really even national. That's like an idea that to me is like, that's just like, duh, that's why governments exist. But because of the way that governments have been acting the past 20 years or so, now we have to say that. And they're calling it nationalism, but it's not nationalism. And so the whole idea that what Donald Trump is doing is nationalism leads down the not road to Nazi is, in my opinion, quite ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I do not think Donald Trump has an ideology other than winning the deal. He was a Democrat before he was a Republican. Yeah, well, that's true. Totally true. Just being pro-American, and that is for everyone living here. Exactly. Exactly. So in my opinion, it's not even nationalism. It's anti-globalism, because that was the default state, and globalism was basically saying that we need to do what is best for the world as a whole. But I say that you can't. It's impossible. Different people have different interests. People's interests conflict. And when you try and look at the whole, all 6 billion people, there are so many conflicting interests that no one organization could ever possibly serve all of those interests equally. It's not possible. So what do? You allow people to create countries based on the things that are in their most interest. So if you are Japanese and your primary interest is the interests of Japanese people, because that country already exists, they're allowed to have an ethno-state over there in Japan. That's totally okay. I'm okay with an ethno-state as long as like it already existed. Trying to create a new one out of nothing, sorry, no, that's a bad idea. Sorry, white people. You can't have an ethno-state. You gave up all of your ethno-states. You can't get it back, because the only way that you can get it back is by violating the Constitution and doing very, very evil things. Okay, but Japan is not evil. Okay, so those people, that's okay. If there are people that their primary interests are the things enshrined in the Constitution, so we have America, right? And that organization should do the things that are for the best interests of the American people, which is the people that believe in the Constitution. And Japan should do the things that are in the best interest of the Japanese people, right? And this whole globalism idea that we should somehow, we can take money from America and give it to other countries because that's what's in the best interest of the world is nonsense. It'll never work. You're just gonna piss everybody off in the end. Bum bum bum. He's a salesman who thinks he could run this country better than most people, so let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. Consensus rule tossed for appeal to authority. Well, so that's just on that one point. On the point of globalism, Donald Trump is 100% right. And that was one of the primary drivers behind his campaign for sure. And it's been a good thing, and it'll affect the politics going forward. If you get somebody like Joe Biden, for instance, to me is sounds very globalist to me. Okay, I think that it would be very difficult for him to get elected because of that. If he did get elected because of that, there would be severe backlash the election following after, and you would get somebody that is even more about that globalism issue. Okay. Now, let's take a step back from that conversation, because we're talking about, things that we're saying. One thing that Donald Trump does do is he plays to the choir. Like an example that we see almost every day now is with the Federal Reserve, right? His fans hate the Federal Reserve. He says, I don't want to get rid of the Federal Reserve. I just think that they should have lowered interest rates. That's what he said at one point. But what do his fans think? And there is this very dedicated group of people that were Ron Paul fans before, and they think that we should just get rid of the Federal Reserve, which is a really dumb idea. But that's what they think. And here's the thing, Donald Trump knows that that's what they think. So what does he do? He attacks the Federal Reserve without telling them that, no, I don't want to get rid of it. I mean, he said that, but he doesn't say that to his supporters. He just says, hey, the Federal Reserve is bad. And so then what he's doing is he's taking advantage of this kind of irrational fervor, for popularity's sake. A demagoguery, essentially. And I don't think that that's a positive thing for people in the long run, People are exhausted by meanness. Wow. You better get used to it because it's never going to go away. Here's the thing, Win, about the meanness. Everybody thinks that Donald Trump is mean and has changed politics. Nonsense. There is not a single thing, not a single strategy that Republicans have used in the past 8 years that they didn't first learn from a Democrat. All Donald Trump does is take all of the mudslinging that Democrats have been doing basically since the Reagan years, and he's turned around and used it on them. So, now that Republicans have finally learned to play the same game, what's going to change? Nothing's going to change because it's effective. So I would get used to it because it's not going to go away. But Republicans didn't start it. It's been going on since the 80s. Anyways, Biden might be considered safe and sound. Let's go back to where we started and try again. I think Elizabeth Warren will gain momentum and people will listen to her ideas. She's wicked smart. Well, this is probably the quintessential question of the Democrat primary, and the thing that makes it so interesting right now is that Elizabeth Warren has been boosted by the far left faction of the party, and she is not well liked by anybody else. So can she overcome the unlikables to actually become the nominee? Or will the diehard Bernie Sanders fans win out? Or will, now with Joe Biden's support collapsing, will Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg rise to prominence and find a middle ground between the two groups where everybody in the Democrat Party can be happy? Because maybe Kamala Harris has some personal negatives that might make that difficult. But, Pete could do it. Because Pete isn't well defined yet. He reports back when I ask that. No one is paying attention or discussing the administration. They do not listen to his rallies, reviews, tweets, and they trust, but they do not verify the honor system is still in effect. I don't know. I watch most of the stuff. When there's a news conference going on, I'll watch it. Mayor Pete might be considered. I think so. I mean, I think that he's almost, I'm in my mind, 70% chance that he is either the nominee or vice president. The only way that he doesn't become vice president is if you get a Warren Sanders ticket. But at some point, Warren and Sanders are going to have to battle it out. They're acting like, they're all nice and friends and they're not going to attack each other, and that's their principles. But when you want to win, you want to win. You do what you're going to need to do to win. And one side is going to choose to do what's necessary to win, it's most likely to be Warren. And once you've taken that opening, all bets are, all not all bets, but all honor goes out the window because all is fair in love, war, and politics, right? Okay, couple of ticks there. And there's definitely something to that. There's a lot of people out there that don't really pay attention. So, like the whole thing about him saying, I am the chosen one. Like, I mean, if you watch his press conferences regularly, he loves playing with the press. He's always joking around with them. And just from his body language, from jokes he's made in the past and everything like that, it's very, very clear to me that he was joking. And he says that he was joking. But then everybody comes back and reads it as that he has a messiah complex. And everybody just like buys that, which I find humorous because it was totally a joke. You know what I mean? But the most people don't watch the conference, you know? Whereas Ace, I don't know. You should be here by now, huh? As much as my son likes the idea of 1K allowance, it would be terrible for my military pension and soon to be social security account. Yeah. Well, I don't think that there's any chance of that happening. Don't get me started on Andrew Yang. We've talked about that before, right? 0% chance of that ever becoming law. And Andrew Yang supporters just don't seem too bright to me. I'm sure that they're out there, but I haven't met them yet. Well, a pretty big iceberg at 03. I think they're going to try and bust it. Let's kind of just watch and see what they do. Because if they bust it, they might give us an opportunity to do something afterwards. Mm-mm. Here's what I see on both sides, the far right or the far left. They punch down and slam the person with the ideas. Moderates or people like us discuss the ideas and plans out, but they do not need to slam, punch down, or insult the person in the idea, but when somebody does that, they lose my support, respect, and interest. Wow. As far as I can tell, that kind of activity in the current political situation is extremely effective and it is unlikely to stop anytime soon. And moderates will say that they don't like that, but they don't really have a choice, right? Because it's not they have to shore up their base instead. But people have become too radical with their beliefs. I agree. I mean, here's the thing. I think that it's okay to be radical about the Constitution, and that's not really radical, but okay. we should follow the Constitution. That's what our government is based on. If it's not in the Constitution, right? The Constitution says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. And if you want it to say that thing, then you should modify the Constitution to say that thing. I don't think that that's an extreme thing, but it's pretty cut and dry ideology, isn't it? But here's the thing, is that the Constitution, you can amend it. And so it's okay, right? But when we go into like conservative and liberal principles, conservatives really like supply side economics, okay? Democrats really like government spending. Anytime that the government or that the economy is in trouble, their solution is that the government should spend more money, right? But there's some ideological backpinnings behind why they think those things. There's opinions about government, and the problem with it is that reality defies any kind of ideological basis. Reality doesn't have an ideology, it doesn't care. So that's where you can get some situations where you might do one economic policy one place and it'll work, and then you use the same economic policy in another place and it doesn't work. Because reality is more complicated than that, And so if you have a person that thinks that we should make all of our decisions based on an ideology, for instance, libertarians. So I'm not a libertarian. Libertarians say that the government should just not be involved in anything. So then you're saying, well, we shouldn't have, public roads, for instance, that all roads should just be private. That's what a libertarian would say. An extreme libertarian, at least. But it's very clear to see that public roads work better. This is just the reality of it is. Reality defies any kind of one ideological pinning. I think it's smart to look at a consumer-driven economy. Wage growth increases in manufacturing and trading. Consumer confidence, happy people sell their stuff, make a little money, and buy more stuff. Yeah. You need time to travel to Fallout's Pillars of the Earth, or even better, throughout the stones to see Jamie and Claire, because I am an Outlander. So here's a problem that we have in the United States right now. Our economy is based on the consumer, and the consumer is based on debt. And so does there become a point at which the economy becomes so levered that the whole thing falls apart? We need to get more people that own things, that own, okay, you own your house, but you don't own your house. The bank owns the house because they could take it away from you at any time if you're not paying, right? Probably a little bit too much to ask that everybody fully owns their house free and clear. Maybe in the future when houses are a lot cheaper, that might be possible. Okay, but then you'll look at other things. How many other things are there out there that people, they don't actually own, that they're buying with debt? And now, which point does that become too much? Kind of interesting open there in the E-mini. So the first impulse was long again, but it wasn't. There wasn't as much volume as there was yesterday. Ace says not going to make it in this morning. Oh. Well, that's okay. I was kind of thinking I don't want to take a trade in the E-mini today anyways, because there's no reason. I might not even take a trade in the 10-year today, to be honest. I'm not really getting good signals. I mean, here was one that might have worked, but it was through the zipper. It seems to me like there's not a lot of incentive to be taking trades today. Maybe tomorrow. we'll have some news tomorrow that we can trade off of. And Friday, what do we got on Friday? Personal spending and personal income, those are important numbers. So, given that we have some much more important numbers later in the week, I heard Milton Friedman talk about the asset line. I've never heard that. Yeah, somebody listed GDP, right? GDP, preliminary GDP quarter over quarter is tomorrow. Whoa. Okay. China says we'll accept applications for waivers of additional tariffs on U.S. products between September 2nd and October 18th. The Yemeni just did not like something. That's maybe we could just sell it. Thereafter, I'm sitting there saying, I don't think I'm going to take a trade today. That seemed like it was probably something, but I can't be sure. And that piece of news that I just read there doesn't seem like that would be doing it. Senior Tory Remainer thinks Boris Johnson has underestimated their ability to stop no deal even if they just have 4 days. If Parliament has a will, there is a way. The way that it moved makes me think that there might have been something to that, but I can't be sure, so I don't think I should trade it. You can see it's already pulling back enough that I would have a hard time not finding a spot. Yeah, Thursday. And the other thing is I don't think it was China related because I don't see the 6J moving. I don't see any of the currencies moving really, except for gold moved there. So it may just be that move down in equities really scared them. But if we're going to continue to move down in the E-mini, there's still some key levels like 28, 42, 75 below us, and then they might come up short from that and turn around. So it's not a sure thing. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. Google, latest company to abandon China, shifts smartphone production to Vietnam. Yeah. So I kind of see a problem with what China's doing right now. Is that even if we get a deal, China's economy is forever damaged. There are so many companies that just aren't going to be in China anymore, even if we make a deal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 5-year has given me that look now. And based on where it is, it would have to be a short. I don't like this particular time, so let's just wait. This is one of those things where it's like the signal's not the signal, so let's just give it a bit. Okay, it ticked down. And the 10 years perking up a little bit as well. Okay. Well, you could probably take that now. Yeah, well, if you were able to get filled at 0.25, we could maybe get 2 ticks on it at least. It's kind of funny how we're yapping and everything, but then when the market starts doing something, everybody goes back to focusing on their trades. And it gets super quiet. Hmm. I don't think that they cleared that 0.25 all the way back up yet, did they? The problem I see at the moment is even though the level 2 is quite active, there's not a lot of volume coming through. Is the market really moving volume to see how popular the market is with other traders? I would say it's not really moving. Different types of technical indicators do different things, trying to direction momentum or the lack of momentum. Uh, Price below longer term average means short price above medium term. Well, I wouldn't make that the basis of my strategy. It can go long or short at any time. Okay. And here's is another really big rush. This one might be some news that we're not seeing yet. Donald Trump did tweet about Brexit. I don't actually know what this is. I think I should stay back. I feel like that's a short, but it didn't actually give me anything. U.S. Trade Representative's Office affirms plan to levy additional 5% tariff on Chinese good on September 1st through the December 15th Federal Register Office notice. That's just a confirmation of something that we already knew. So why would that move the market? Robots, I guess. Googling oscillators. Oscillators can be nice. I just say what I would always look at if you're going to be day trading is you want anything that gives you a chance of detecting when the market has overextended itself. That's what you got to look for. How do you get a sign? How do you know? And so here's the problem with oscillators is we're moving in this area and then it says, okay, based on the recent action, this is how high they're going to get. And then there's going to be a pullback. Like when where I don't have it, like CCI is an oscillator, for instance, or RSI is probably a more popular oscillator, right? So RSI says, okay, you get to this a certain point and then it's overbought. But if there was real news to push it past that location, the RSI doesn't matter anymore, right? That's why I prefer to just watch the volume and the orders placed and the news, because then I can see whether if there's an imbalance that has to resolve itself or not. USTR says action follows move by China to increase tariffs on U.S. goods and threaten additional retaliation, harming the U.S. economy. Mm-hmm. Still nothing. I hope I'm not the only Vulcan on this. Stochastic, randomly determine having a random probability distribution or pattern that may be analyzed statistically but may not be predicted precisely. Yes. Well, so you're talking about there's stochastic oscillators. See, the problem with most indicators of that type is that those indicators were detecting imbalance. For instance, RSI. So you know the guy that invented RSI, that he traded it for a while, and I think he did pretty well. But then after he published it, it didn't work anymore, and he doesn't trade anymore. So the thing is that when a certain method of doing things becomes too popular, the market will take the edge out of it, and then it's not an effective way of seeing the imbalance anymore. The only way that you can never possibly be immune from that is if you're looking at the actual orders, because they have to place orders. That's the way that the market works. That's why order flow reading is always king. But even if you're looking at a specific thing in order flow, for instance, you're looking for a spoof or something like that, right? That's something that certain point too many people are going to figure out. So you have to be able to read the orders and understand the meta and act accordingly. So a lot of those indicators, like your RSIs and so forth, they're not useless per se, but if you base your trading just based off of that, you're unlikely to be successful for very long. So close from highs, a test would be nice. Not much more, in my opinion. Waiting for GDP 30 plus at the moment. A pullback is probably more probable. Sure was a short. Flow state, known as being in the zone, is mental state of being in of operation in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in the feeling of energized focus, full involvement and enjoyment of the process. In essence, flow is characterized by complete absorption of what one does and a resulting loss of one's sense of space and time. So when you lose track of time, time is a function of your left brain. So if you're losing track of time, tends to mean that the task that you're focused on has been taken over by the right side of the brain. So like when you're driving and you lose track of time and all of a sudden you're at your destination, you don't know how it happened. It's because you went into right brain mode. So that's how I would interpret that. When you're in the zone trading, I would say you can you still need to have logic involved. You have to be able to use both, and so completely losing track of time is not necessarily a good feeling. Duty rate on 300 billion list of Chinese goods will be 15%. Yeah, I don't see it. It definitely was a sell. I never got like an actionable signal in the 10-year. There just might not be enough people trading today. If you set your RSI to 5, if my memory serves me well, it will nearly mirror the tick. What do you mean by mirror the tick? I don't know. The thing is I feel that indicators can be incredibly useful, just not as the basis of a strategy. You know what I mean? I have a video about this. I think I'll put it up in a week or two. So because I upload stuff every day, I don't necessarily have to put a video out every week, so I kind of feel like I might as well drag them out because every day you get new followers. We're still growing, so I'm not as quickly as I would like. But we are above 1,500 subscribers, so bravo. It's funny because when you look at on YouTube now, it says 2K, but it's really 1,500 subscribers. Just reading Lynn's comment about ADHD. Yes, and in ADHD is a cognitive disconnect between the right and left parts of the brain. I'm smack down in the middle of both sides, and hence my masculine energy showing up in wearing pearls. My daughter has cognitive dysfunction due to her ADHD, but her IQ was genius. Yeah, I don't know. I've never read that there's a correlation between those things, but I think that order flow reading is something that requires the use of both because you still have to use logic, you still have to think about the situation, you still have to think about what happened last time that this happened, and so your situational awareness and those executive functions in your brain, those logical executive functions in your brain are very, very important. But you also very much need to use the right side of your brain to understand the way that it's moving, you know? I have to say, though, this, 187, 26, 77, 30, 125 on the way down is like, it came back really quickly. And it's giving me the closest that you can compare to a signal at 01. And if you look at Axios' last Elite Trader video, that also nearly mirrors what I was sharing with you months back. Yeah. I am scattering and name dropping your channel all over, and I'm online for hours, as you can tell. Yeah. Well, I haven't seen. I was kind of wondering because he hadn't commented on videos much this week, but I was like, oh, she'll be back. Don't worry. The thing is, it's not. The market has ebbs and flows, right? This is if you were going to take a vacation, I think that this is one of the weeks that you would want to do it because it's a rollover and you get all sorts of funky, crazy things happen on rollover that makes it hard to trade. Hmm. Interesting. UBS strats note that U.S. companies with high sales exposure to China have generated about 400 basis points of alpha year to date. How is that possible? I would really like to know more about that. How is that possible? Hmm. Is it just increased demand before everything hits the fan? That could be. So it could just be pulling demand forward much in the same way that like cash for clunkers did. Hmm. E-mini kind of pushing highs now. See, so I'm glad that I didn't FOMO in on that trade. This is why I think that when you see a move, you need to look at the news, because the robots could be wrong and you don't necessarily want to jump on board. In a situation like that, after it came up there at 04.5, we totally could have shorted it. You'd have to be fast, and when it's a bad market, that's a tough trade. Because if you screw it up, there's not going to be much opportunity to make it back. Listen to Jordan Peterson talk about ADHD. I haven't seen any of those. The food prices will climb very soon. I would look into consumer-related foodstuffs, and I would also stock up on dry goods. I don't know if that's true or not. Wait, I mean, it's a good theory. We'd have to watch the numbers. If that happened, it would certainly be very, very bad. Okay, now I'm getting something. It kind of already died down though, so I'm not sure. That 032 really. 5-year really jumped up there. Well, it's giving you 015. The volume is split between the contracts, making a difficult read. Yeah. I think not only does it get split between contracts, but also, um, you know, it's a different trade, because people are just managing their positions going into um, the rollover, you know? So when you're seeing the volume, it doesn't mean what it normally means. So you're much more likely to get a bad read. Well, E-mini really, really jumped up there. But that kind of looks this. I don't think that they have any reason to be buying it per se. It's just kind of like short covering. But it does look like I might be on the wrong side of this. So they're not ticking back up into 01, even though they're giving them a pretty good look at it. E-mini definitely got a little excited there. So they might need to take a step back. Hmm. Like 64 to push it back. See, somebody is stacking and pulling at 132 even. Paul Rotter said he does not use technical analysis but trades fundamentals. Yeah. Well, and they watch order flow. If you watch those Axia videos, they almost all have DOMs up and are trading the DOM. And Paul Rotter was a DOM trader. He makes his 200 to 500K and calls it a day. There you go. I just got buried. Well, that sucks. But I think it was an okay to trade to take. I wish I had only taken 2 instead of 4. I need to fix that. I'd say ES bought pretty hard there. Man. It's still ticking like they could just go forever. Yeah. They traded 1,000 into 30 half? How'd that happen? He no longer does scalping, reflecting the way markets have evolved. His style is now more focused on longer term trading strategies. He currently lives in Singapore. Well, yeah, I mean, probably when he was trading, it was not affected as much by the robots, you know? Well, I was kind of afraid they was going to do that on me, but okay. I saw that there was momentum and it was ticking well, so I thought, okay, maybe it will continue. But then as soon as I got in it stopped doing it. So doesn't mean that it won't go lower, but it just means that that's not our spot. He said Asia market wasn't affected by algos as much. It's interesting. But I mean, yes, the thing is if you can just trade off of the fundamentals on a long-term time frame, you're much better off. If you can swing treasuries, you know, like take a trade, and we've had some guys in Discord. I feel bad, you know. I wish we could keep them around, but the way that what we discuss isn't as interesting to them. But the if you understand what's going on, you can make pretty good calls. And when you get one and it goes, you can make so much on it. You can make so much on it. And you know when you're wrong because the situation changes and you say, okay, it's not what I thought, and you take it off. But you have to have a lot of money to play that way. So you're holding overnight. And so, yes, propagation request approved by Queen. Hmm. So I appear to be getting in another event here. Put up an ES chart and watch Axie's Elite Trader entry and exits. It's a world of good info. Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of their videos, but what's the title of the video you're talking about? Because usually when I watch their videos, it's kind of like, I don't know, there's a lot of like, well, duh. It's kind of like they always give you just enough to make you want to buy the course, but they don't give you enough to actually like be able to effectively trade off of the information that they give you. That's how I feel. So when you're just starting out, it was a lot of really good information, but now it's kind of mostly things that I've noticed on my own. And okay, E-mini's turning back around. Um, I didn't get a clear exit signal, and then we're in a chop zone, so Zero Sedge says, and down goes Dick. They must be talking about the S&P tick, meaning that the number of companies that are up versus down today is going down, despite this big move up. Nope, not fast enough. I'm just noticing their tendency to take a look, but they're not interested. But let's see if they start working it here. Did you or someone from this channel call myself? How would I call yourself? Man, that's weird. But no, I certainly did not. I don't know your number. Okay. A little too easy there. Meaning there's a good chance that it's going to tick back into this. 2 days ago. No. Yeah. Should have tried taking it off there. Okay. He's just stacked a bunch at 30 half. I know that I haven't given it to you, but I have not been online ever over the weekend. I thought perhaps because I have shared your channel that my info was linked somehow. No. No. In fact, I haven't really noticed anything because I watch kind of like external links and things like that, and I haven't seen any unusual traffic. So, I made a video, posted a video on Monday, and it's doing about average. And I didn't try bumping it up a ton this time, but I haven't been able to look at the what do we call it? The click-through rate yet. It hasn't given me those stats yet. Dow panic bid into green after U.S. Open. They definitely bought there again. Um, guess I need to take it off because it didn't turn out the way that I thought it was. Live action. When the treasuries are bitten, you make 6E might be an alternative. Yeah. I feel like that when it gets slow, that you can just switch to a sim account and practice. So there's different action, or you can just practice not trading. That's a good thing to do too. Yes, does. That's been a good rally so far. Just the way it's ticking and everything. Unfortunately, the treasuries haven't been giving me a good short. The only trade that they ever gave me was this one. I suppose we could have seen that as a short, not a long. I think I misread that. So a pretty strong take there. Time for some Advil. They could just short this into the all day, for all we know. This is where it starts to get dumb because it's like any spot that it might try and hold. If I try and sell 29 half, that'll be where it stops. They went through some liquidity there too, didn't they? Yeah, was that 29 half? Yeah. Time for acupuncture. Oh, I have to. Maybe I'll try that later. I need to watch this for a second. Anything for the neck? I'm totally into the foam rolling stuff. So there's these things they call them like theracanes or various things, but it's like a stick with a big curve on it so that you can kind of massage your back. It's great and good for neck and traps too. Eat some healthy fats like nuts or cheese. I've been trying to eat more nuts. Hmm. Nicholas Taleb. How much does someone's IQ tell you about his or her wealth or income? How much more can you bet on wealth and knowing IQ or vice versa? Answer: no. None. Zero. Answer: zero. Donald Trump bashing Fox News. If you eat healthy fats and get your protein in the mornings, you'll feel better. I think I do that. We usually eat eggs, cook it in some olive oil. I'm pretty hardcore on the nutrition because of the weightlifting, and I really have to keep it in because my my colon just isn't super great, and that kind of affect how well you absorb nutrients. Uh, don't like that. My leg's going to sleep. What's with that? That didn't feel right. I don't feel like I'm as close to the microphone as I normally would be. I need to get one of those stands. I saw somebody on the local classifieds that had a pretty good mic stand, sort of a boom thing, but he didn't respond. You link something in the comments, sure. Hmm. Yeah, so you can actually get the link. Uh, so it's kind of weird. The way that it works is kind of weird. Let's see if I can grab it here. come in here and we look at this one. Cool. So here's the link, right? Greg says that you're long. You're long the 30 year. Anyways, that's the link. So if you go and you look, you visit that page and watch with that page, you should be able to scroll down to the bottom and put comments in already. At least I can. Oh, you got 09? I'm not really getting. Well, I am getting. Actually, I'm getting something in the 30 year. They're doing something with the offer. And I'm seeing something now. It's funny. So he says he got out, huh? Oh, he only took one tick, huh? But I'm seeing something weird is kind of going on. It's a very thin. Well, it's the funny thing is that it's thicker than it's been, right? It looks to me like when we get after the holiday that we're going to have some pretty good liquidity. But the E-mini is turning for one thing. And I mean, it's really turning. I don't know what caused that long. Kind of still looks to me like maybe a short covering rally of some sort. Oh yeah, right when you got out because it could have gotten 12, huh? Well, when you look at my chart here, you see this little thing here in the 5 year. But the thing that really interests me is that all of a sudden you started seeing large bids in the 5 year and large offers in the 30 year. And when you see that, it's often the other way. But especially if we start getting a lot of pulls here, then that means that it tends to extend further. Buyers maybe. Well, probably the reason we see them differently like that is because of spreading, right? But it was very subtle, but they were kind of working it there. They were working it there probably because they knew that the E-mini is just pulling back. But the question is, how much imbalance do you have if they start moving up? You're also getting that slow churn. Curious. The last time I saw this, um, I thought they were pulling back and I took a short and they were going to go lower. And then they just kept churning higher. No way to know that it's the same thing, but it just kind of gives you an idea of the kind of scenarios we're looking at here. Live action says he's looking at 28.66 for buyers. You can see there's that big bid at 28.68.25. Maybe they go a little bit lower to the low volume node, you say? You know, I haven't been doing a good job at watching the volume profile. Otherwise, we'd be seeing that it's a pretty big drop off there at 132 even. It's interesting that they're still doing the ticking at 31. Do you see it? So that time he pulled it. And we're getting something here. We're definitely getting something here. Looks like a short. Have to take that one as a short. Wondering if they'll give a golden signal here. And that order that's been messing around, it's doing it at 132 even. Searches for Dow Jones were higher than they were in May when the blue chip. Yeah. Well, the thing you got to realize, this whole yield curve inversion thing has been a huge media story. But this is why I'm personally am really skeptical, because the media is making a big deal over the yield curve inverting. And everybody on social media that you talk to is like, oh yeah, this is a big deal. And then you go in and you state all of the actual, like, the real information about it, right? Because this is a very unique and interesting situation with the yield curve. And it's going to tell us a lot about these yield curve inversions and what kind of effects they actually have. And help us decipher what is effect and what is merely just correlation or them trying to predict. And so when you come in and you say, okay, yeah, but things are a little bit different this time, then they'll say, well, that's what they said the last 6 times that this happened. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about, huh? You've got QE, you've got this huge influx from foreign countries coming in. The situation is completely different, and we do not know if a yield curve inversion causes recessions or if it's merely predicting a recession. If it's merely predicting a recession, then the fact that we've had QE causing the negative carry and keeping yields low, and the foreign investment coming in is an extremely relevant fact. And you want to sit down and say, well, because it happened the last 10 times, guess what? Past performance is not indicative of future results. So you're somebody that just read something on the news. You don't know jack squat about what you're talking about. And you want to turn around and tell somebody that sits and watches this thing every day for years that you have a better idea of where it's going than them. When the truth is we know that nobody really knows. Because honestly, if it was as easy as, oh, when the yield curve inverts, we're going to have a recession. If it was that easy, then everybody would be able to predict them, and they can't. So, obviously, you can tell it irks me when I read that. But anyways, so because the media has made such a big deal out of it, everybody's talking about it, and there's a lot of search engine traffic about it. And that in and of itself kind of indicates overextension. So I would be cautious about that. Makes sense? If everybody is expecting a recession to happen, does the expectation of a recession dampen sentiment and make the recession happen? Or does it make people blind to the positive things that are happening and cause them to become overly negative and overextend and in the end just cause a more violent overreaction the other direction when everybody is proven wrong? You know what I mean? We don't know. That's why this recession tells us so much. And the sad thing is that probably we learn all of those things, and then probably next time around, they won't matter. Current economic data does not look the same as past inversions. For instance, usually unemployment starts to tick up when the curve inverts. Totally right, BU. But you know what? On that one, BU. By the way, welcome. I haven't seen that name, so thank you for watching. That the caveat that I would put on that is that I think that it is too early to be looking at some of those numbers. So, like, we got that consumer sentiment number yesterday, and I read a lot into it, but I was also saying, if there's going to be a significant downtick in sentiment, you might not see it until next month. Um, and there's probably similar in unemployment. Although I would be really surprised if unemployment ticked down significantly next month. So, I don't know. But that's just that one particular data point. But the larger point is still important, right? The economic data does not look anything like past recessions. Well, I think I played that one well, didn't I? Here's the thing. I survived the crash of 2006 on up. We became affluent through the bubble, and I lost my spot. We threw the bubble and we worked in waterfront property and data transportation company, and the real estate market went flip flop. The bottom went bust. Same scenario this time. We have not learned the lessons just a few years ago. I missed so much opportunity back in 2009 when I had cash to invest. The whole media was screaming to stay out. Yes, that's right. That's just I just every time. Like, here's the thing: is do you guys remember um, the first year Donald Trump was president? Um, and the E-mini was on a good run, and the primary driver was taxes. But do you remember when it would go up literally every day? And I remember talking to John, our good friend here that I've known for a while. And I remember talking to him like, surely this can't go on forever. Like, this is the sort of thing that happens at tops, isn't it? And he said, well, the thing you got to remember is that um, a bottom is an event. So I've only ever seen the bottom, right? The bottom is the event. And I remember when it happened, and it was very, very clear to me in my mind when it happened. I knew from that day that it was over. I knew somehow. I don't know how I knew, because I was new and I shouldn't have any knowledge, and maybe I didn't really know, but in my mind at least, I knew that it was over. But a top is a process, and it takes a while to happen. So I asked him, isn't this the sort of thing that happens at the top? And he's like, well, I'm not sure, but you remember that. But the reason I bring that up is because when that was happening, was the media talking about it? No. It wasn't a big news story. It was like when things were good and it was a good buy, they don't say squat. And then when it's selling, by the time the media is saying sell, you've already missed your really optimal sell spots. And then they're the most panicked down at the bottom. And then all of a sudden it stops. And does the media say, oh, the stock market bottomed today? No. Right? Because you got to remember that the media's incentive is for clicks. And what gets clicks? Scaring people. So you definitely don't want to use the media. You don't want to go along with, if the media is talking bad that day, you should sell, and vice versa, right? That's probably the worst thing that you can do. Anyways, similar to 2015-16, a lot of recession talkers never inverted, but did flatten the economy slowed, but was still overall good. Your information into a pattern, then read the prediction. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that I knew so little at that time that it's quite remarkable that I was so confident that that was a bottom. That's all. I'm a little frustrated that I only got 2 heads so far, because it was a really, really clear sell. But I'm happy about that. I was happy about my ability to flip, to say I'm in a long and this is wrong and I need to go short. That's good. Carl Jones junks about the introverted intuitive. That is my information processing cycle. I see a word theory and it creates a spark of impressions, and some people are just curious. And well, you got to remember, man, there's so much information out there, and you can go down these so many different paths, and sometimes you kind of have to focus down on one thing. So one of the things that hurts retail traders the most is that they will switch. They're constantly changing their setup. So they'll think, okay, here's a couple of indicators and stuff that I want to try out, and I really like this, and I'm going to try this. And they'll try it, and then they'll have a trade that'll go bad. And so they'll say, well, it doesn't work. And then they'll change it again. When the truth is you got to backtest something for a period of time, right? And then you've got to stick with it, because I could say it'll take you years to actually even get good at just trading in general, and then You change your signal somewhere. How long does it take you to get good with that signal? A little bit too much there at 30. But anyways, so you want to, that's why I say, listen, here's my argument here. Because here's the question, okay? If you really need to focus on one thing, then what happens if you focus on something for a really long time and then it turns out that thing just isn't profitable, right? So the first thing is you got to do some sort of research ahead of time to say that it actually has some profitability, which is really hard with order flow because you can't just do that on replay, right? Man, what's my chest? It's popping around. It's moving a lot. But I think that here's a case where, the why it works, I think, is important. Like, I don't think that you should go in and you should say, okay, this particular combination of indicators gives a really good probability of winning. And in my backtesting says, or over the past 6 months, it says that it works really well. Because the market changes and maybe you haven't backtested it far enough, right? Why does it work? Why does it work? And how does the current market affect how it works, right? So here's my argument. The reason that this works is because it shows you places where there's a large amount of interest, and because so many people are putting orders in at that spot, there's a significant degree of imbalance at that location. And that's why it works. Okay? Now that's something that you can look at and I can say, okay, if it's a really slow market, that is going to change the way that it works because it's easier for a large player to come in and cancel that imbalance out. Okay. If there's a piece of news, that spot where maybe it would reverse, may very well be a continuation, right? Like we can look at it contextually and say, how does the market affect this? And you can see it in your own trading and you can adjust for it, right? But that to me is like a really good argument for like, here's how you can trade, right? And now you can take that and you can develop and practice it over the course of several years without having to worry about, well, what if it just actually doesn't work? Because here we have a solid underlying theory. You can backtest it yourself for a month. There's a lot of other people that have traded this way that we know are profitable. Just my take. And compared to what most people do, which is, randomly throw up a set of indicators until you find something that happens to work. Doesn't work. One thing with order flow is practice. I replay every day. If something really bothered me or I really didn't understand, I always go back and look. That's what's so great. I mean, that's why I started the channel. It's great that we've built a community around it, but it wasn't the primary, wasn't why it started. I really didn't think that anybody else would watch. And I don't think, okay, so they're still hitting a decent amount into 30. And there's still a decent amount of interest here. Even he's still moving up. Tough call. Could maybe take it off here, but. And then what was the other comment that I was looking at? It's good to develop other awareness, but sadly, most in-type groups want to type inflate. Like yesterday, it was a slow move, but the read was easier than normal. Yeah. Well, you know what? I didn't read yesterday very well, though, did I? Up until there was the really good one that I missed, and then the good one that I did catch, I took it over there and it didn't work out. But yesterday was tough. Today was tough. But it did give me a really good read right there. That one is hard because that one, it came back and it's up 2 ticks. So do you sit down and you say, is it it's seeing increased activity there because they're buying or selling it? And that's kind of hard to say. Gamer123 is cool. Thank you for tuning in. How many people do we have on Twitch today, by the way? We had a decent amount yesterday. I was pleasantly surprised. Hey, look at that. It's really going now. Oh, not really many. I don't know if the Twitch stream is ever going to be popular, but did the liquidity change there? It did. I think I should keep this on. Oh boy. So this appears to me like there was an imbalance, and they're pushing them further, and the E-mini is really seeing some buying here. But that, look at how much that 29 is traded back. Donald Trump tweeted about the Federal Reserve. What did he say? Our Federal Reserve cannot mentally keep up with the competition. Other countries at the G7 and France, all of the other leaders were giddy about how low their interest rate costs have gone. Germany is actually getting paid to borrow money, 0 interest, plus no clue Fed. Meditation, I'm going to read all these posts later tonight. Still need that neck pain to go away. Yeah, we can talk about it. I want to make, so I'll tell you, you can tell me what you think, but I have a couple of ideas for videos. The next video that I have coming out, and I don't know when I'm going to post it. I need to edit it still. Maybe I'll put it out next week. Maybe it could wait. But the next post is going to be about technical analysis because we cover that one a lot. And then I also have a video about NinjaScript coming up, planned. And I also have one about the platforms. So, but I'm thinking about, future recording. And one of the ones, well, two of the ones that I want to do is general health stuff. Because I feel like I've got the diet and exercise sort of stuff part of trading pretty down. I don't have trouble with that very often anymore. Oh man, they're still trading it to 29 and 29.5. And then another one that I want to do is just about my setup. I want to get a few more things for the setup before I record that. I would really like to get the monitor stand in, and then maybe. Well, a little disappointed in that one because, well, I could have gotten 29. For starters, I could have gotten 29. Maybe if I'm more patient, I could still get 29. But then you can see down in here some interest. So it's the way it's moving and the way that the E-mini is moving is kind of suggests to me that we might be able to move lower, but the activity is telling me that there's already imbalance and that I'm not so sure that I can be going for more. Did it actually give 8? How come I only got 4? 31.5 to 29.5. Oh, I see. It was 8, so there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. I suppose that's okay. But there you can see I could have gotten the extra point. Or 2. Or 8. Let's see what it does. I guess, though, it's okay. Like, it's also the time and how long I had been in and everything. Like, I was sitting in that for 20 minutes. You get 20 minutes and you get a move. You got to think about taking it off because the chances are after the crazy that there's going to be imbalance and you're going to have to move back up. Am I wrong? The Then the CME starts the MES so their friends can steal from the $300 accounts? Sure seems that way sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah, the whole MES thing kind of is interesting because it does seem to me that the whole, like, it feels to me like the whole thing is designed for most people to fail. Absolutely. It's like I could come in and I could tell you exactly the thing to do and you could be successful with it potentially. But then if everybody knew it, then it wouldn't work anymore. You're holding tension in your shoulders and in your face? That's probably a Adderall thing. As crazy as this move in fixed income has been, I still think it's a buy the dip trend right now. Oh, I don't know. It's hard. Pop Mac, good thought. Oh, popularity matters. MES is to take money from the Forex crowd. There you go. I mean, I have problems that here. I mean, the thing is like Ace makes really good money on the ES, right? I don't completely understand his strategy, so sometimes when I see something and he's also giving a signal, then I'll take it. By the way, I see something right here in ES. It's telling me in ES to go short. Now from this point, it's common for them to go 2 ticks against you, 2 points against you. So if we could get short at 28.81, that would be the signal. But I don't have enough stats in ES yet to say how good it is. When we have the confluence, then it does seem to work pretty well. Anyways, what was the point of that? Oh yeah, it's just like it's totally set up for most people to fail, and it's like they want more people in it so that they can make more money. Because what's happening is because there aren't very many retail people in there anymore, and if a certain percentage of the people are going to lose, what's happening now is that some of the market makers and the exchange people are losing. I think that's what's going on. But here's the key: is you've got to there's got to be a reason why your strategy works. I this really bothers me because I've seen so many comments in the day trading subreddit. I've been reading the day trading subreddit a lot. And there's so much stuff where they're saying that, like, they ran some statistics or something like that. Or it probably worse is the Facebook group. The Facebook group, they'll go and they'll show you a backtest. And I'm like, that's not going to work. Because why does it work? You don't know. And if you don't know, how are you going to adjust your strategy when the market changes? And oh, by the way, Daniel B, hey, how's it going? That's a new. You've been here before, haven't you? Seems like an old name. Probably created a new account though. Why do you want to short the ES at this moment? They're overextended. I can see it. When they've moved up into this bar, there is significantly more order interest at this spot than anywhere else. So the way that I try and play it is there's an imbalance here. What's going to happen is they're going to go the wrong way first. So they're going to push up maybe to 28.81. They might break a new high, and then it's going to reverse hard. That's the trade. But like I said, I don't have it tested enough. That's the trade that I'm taking in the Treasuries. It doesn't seem to work as well in the ES, but it still works sometimes. And it's also a lot harder to see in the ES, but I see it very clearly right now. Okay, so there it's going. MES, look at the DOM. There's always 200 contracts, 2 ticks outside the current. Then if price moves within 1 tick, the 200 contract splits into 100, 100. Scam. Yeah. Well, it's the exchange totally has a robot. The exchange totally has a robot. Am I wrong? In my opinion, this 50 that you see at every price is the exchange. And there's the exchange has a robot that if the E-mini ticks down, then it will sell as many contracts as are necessary to move price to keep them in line. And it's just running arbitrage between these two. I think the exchange has that. And it's possible that, they could look at how people are positioned so that they can see if everybody in the MES is positioned long right now, then I want to stop them out or whatever the thing is, right? They're trying to contain the MES action 1-for-1 with the ES, for sure. But I don't know. Here's the thing, though. I would be careful with words, okay? It seems to me like I don't feel like with the MES that they're being completely honest with me. I think that there are things about it and the way that things work and everything that people would probably really like to know that they're not telling us. For sure. But I don't think that you can call it a scam, right? They're giving you the deal that you want. You can take. The thing that I don't think that they tell you is that the amount that the ES is likely to move is probably a lot more than what you guys are willing to take. And the amount that you can safely make is probably a lot less than you want. That's the scam, if there's a scam, right? So the solution to that, in my mind, is just have reasonable expectations. Like Ace has reasonable expectations. You can get 8 ticks on the E-mini, and if that's all you go for, it works really well. I think he's got the idea. So if we had taken the 2881, you would have 8. But this signal is worth more than 8. This signal is usually worth about 16 to 32. So you've gotten 2 probably, you can go to there. What does that put us at? 77. And then there's this spot right here, 76. So I think you could probably get 76 out of it. But we'll see. Was there? I don't know. There was so I have to apologize. I feel so bad because it's like we have such a tight knit community. I want to address every comment, but sometimes when we're talking so much, I can't read every comment, especially when I need to pay attention here. What I need is an assistant. I could convince one of my kids or my wife to sit here and wake up early with me every morning, I would do it. But there's no way that they're ever going to do that. But I need an assistant to read the tweets and the comments for me so that I can watch this. I wish that the robot assistant was good enough, but the robot assistant isn't because they just want to read every little thing and they read too slow. But we'll figure it out someday. And you know what? You all know I love you, right? MES will work better for traders who hold onto their trades for a bit longer than most scalpers. Oh, well, popularity matters. That's a really good point too. Is that if you use MES to swing, you could be crazy successful with that. And I've been trying to scalp it. Maybe I should take a step back and try and recreate my my swing strategies. So if I was swinging right now, I think I would not want to be in. I think that you wait for the news. I think that you wait for Friday. Maybe you could take some trades, but it's probably really good to stay out of the market until after the holiday anyways. Fill your chat room with the trivia, inspired silliness, try to keep your audience entertained. But a sidekick or wingman would be perfect for your channel. Well, you know what? When you've done a good job, I have to say, there's been a lot more activity in here with you. And there's positives and minuses from it, but I enjoyed it. It's fun. And the YouTube is just for fun. I just want to remind you guys that if you find the YouTube chat is too much and you have serious things like a signal or a picture or something that you want to highlight to everybody, the place for this serious chat is the Discord. And in the Discord, we have separate channels for every product. So if you want to post a chart or something like that, that's where I would go. Yeah. Let's hope the attention is not me attracting bots and trolls. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's according to my stats. We have a very small but extremely dedicated and energized audience. There's about 50 people or so that they just love this and they want to come and watch, check a little bit about what's going on every day, which is really cool. I appreciate it. I don't think that I'm particularly entertaining or anything like that. Oh man, it's 9 o'clock. One story before we go. I'll tell you a story. Okay. This is good. This is good stuff. Really, kind of. So, my wife is pregnant, right? And she did we wanted to make sure that we did the genetic testing so that if there was anything wrong, that we would at least be prepared for it. I would never report or anything like that, but we wanted to be prepared for it. And so we got that back. And part of that is that you can find out if it's a boy or a girl. And she was like, well, we'll just do it like maybe we can do something on the weekend and we can record it or something like that. And I was like, why don't we just find out right now? I don't see any reason to wait. And if you really want to record it, you can record it right now. So she did. So she tried to record. I don't think it was very good, but she was like, so you think it's going to be a boy or a girl? And I'm thinking like, well, I think that my genetics seems to make better looking girls than boys. Because it's the big eyes, the bug eyes is not Doesn't seem to be highly prized in men, but in girls, people love it. Hey, big eyes. Got people like girls with big eyes, right? Um, and and but here's the thing: it's a boy. so so it was like that video wasn't very interesting, and I'm just like, you know what? Look, I am not like the outsized reaction guy. Of course, when it moves, I'm usually like, wow. But if you really want somebody that has like a really entertaining reaction to everything, is always entertaining, it's not me. I think that it really comes down to that I'm the only person dumb enough to do this, is what it really comes down to. And there's nothing particularly special about me that has led us to the success that we've had. But we do have, some edge here, and we're honest. I think that that's the big thing that attracts people, is that we're honest. But I don't think that there's anything about me that is particularly entertaining. But people still watch, and I'm just super lucky in that respect, and I really appreciate it, guys. Mm-hmm. If she is carrying high, then she may be carrying girl. If she carries low, then yes. Well, that's why we thought it was a girl, but it's a boy. Yes. Hope your son is an amazing person to talk to and share music with. Well, I tell you what, I'm a little worried about that it's a boy now, because now I'm like, oh, so now I get to heap all of my unfulfilled hopes and dreams on my child. Is that what you know? More so if it's a boy than if it's a girl. I think that that's going to happen. The edge for Seth, honesty. There you go. Could be. I was thinking about that yesterday with Bitcoin, and I was like, the problem in Bitcoin is that the people out there that have the technical skill, the financial market knowledge, and the honesty to actually make Bitcoin successful aren't involved in it and wouldn't do that. And so you get somebody that is totally honest but doesn't understand the economics behind it, or and vice versa. And so you get these things like they did with the blockchain, where they basically killed their own. Man, things are not going, especially with watching Lightning Network not going very well. Things aren't going very well for Bitcoin, in my opinion. I think that progress on cryptocurrencies has been set back years. But that's a different subject for a different time. So I gotta head out. Thank you guys for watching. I will catch you guys tomorrow. We'll have some news, so maybe we'll have some better trading. Today we came out break even, basically. I can't believe I took those 3 and scratched them, but this week doesn't count. Honestly, I wouldn't expect to be profitable this week. Anyways, catch you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, stay profitable.